podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to a new podcast, The Paddock and the Pavilion with Stephen Wallace. In each show, Stephen will interview someone connected to the world of horse racing or cricket.
Today's guest is Rab Havlin, Royal Ascot winner and second jockey at John Gosden's Clarehaven stables in Newmarket. On the 4th of March, Rab celebrated his 1000th British winner on Pitcher's Point at Lingfield. Enjoy the programme, which can be downloaded on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher and Spotify. Welcome to the podcast, Rab.
Good, yeah, happy to be here.
Well, thank you very much for coming on. So just to start with, how did it all start for you?
It was a funny story, actually. Myself and one of my friends, growing up in a Scottish council estate, we bumped into some girls on ponies one day when we were riding our bikes, and anyway,
bumping into girls, yeah.
Yeah, well, we fell in love with the ponies anyway. But we followed them, and then I kind of got hooked and got myself going up to like a local horse dealer's yard where I used to spend sort of afternoons and evenings up there. My mum seen that I was really, I was really getting into it, and she got me a job at Cree Lodge in Ayr. John Wilson's racing stable. Was going in there every Saturday morning.
And how old were you then when you first went to?
I was 11 then. I was 11, yeah. So like just going up in the Saturday mornings and helping the lads. But I went up every Saturday then until I left school and sort of joined John as apprentice.
So when did you start doing some riding then when you were there?
I was about 14. I would be riding them back for the gallops.
Right, yeah.
And then he'd put me on some trotters when I was 15 sort of thing and get the odd hack or a cant around. But yeah, I mean, it was funny because my mother never actually told me. My mother and father were separated, and my dad failed to mention it until I was about 13 that he was actually an apprentice jockey in Newmarket for Dave Tom, which was I couldn't believe it. But he got homesick and came home.
Yeah, I read that your dad had wanted to be a jockey, but I didn't realise he'd actually gone to Newmarket then. Yeah, so
yeah, he spent a year in Newmarket, or just over a year, but he was a Scottish boy, and he got homesick and he headed back where he met my mother.
It's a long way from home, yeah. Mm. And that's where you, at John Wilson's, you became an apprentice as well, yeah.
Yeah, I was apprentice at John Wilson's. I think it was about 5 apprentices there at the time, and I loved it there. Actually, it was close to home, and I obviously knew I knew the older lads because I'd been there for so long as a kid, and I was kind of well looked after there, and everybody looked after me. I actually loved it. But
so how many horses did you have there then?
Oh, at the best time, I think we had about 58 horses. He had 2 yards. He actually took one of the racing stables, bottom yards up at Ayr. So we had a full yard across the road for the races, and then he had accommodated sort of 20 boxes in the racing stables. So that was good. And we had the track, obviously, every morning we worked on the track, and the gallops ran the inside of the track. So it was always good on race days as well.
Good. And that led to your first ride when I was looking up here on Wednesday, the 3rd of April, 1991. It was actually Grand National Week, and I looked up, and that was the year when, 3 days before the Grand National, when Seagram beat Garrison Savannah in the run-in. I don't suppose you quite remember that, but what do you remember about the 3rd of April, 1991?
Oh, I remember being unbelievably excited about going there. It's funny, I can remember that because I was taking everything in that day. I can even remember the smell of the grass that day, and it was just such an amazing thing. But obviously, I had plenty of butterflies, but I enjoyed it immensely, and everything seemed to go to plan, and it was a great experience. And then I couldn't wait to get on the next one. Then once you get the bug.
This was at Hamilton as well, so it was a sort of local course to you as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I looked up, and you came 11th of 13, and 2 of the jockeys that were in the race that day were Jason Weaver and Franny Norton. So
yeah, and both friends of mine now. And actually, myself and Franny and a few of the other lads were in South Africa in November there together. So Franny's a great mate of mine. We shared an agent for a good part of 20 years.
And then how many more rides did you have before you had your first winner on the 22nd of June?
Oh, I think I'm quite sure it was my third ride. Was the winner,
Right.
with Dyer to Ayr, in another apprentice race. I had something like, I think I had 20 rides in my first year, and I rode 3 winners. I think 2 of them were on Diet and 1 was on Air Raider, I think.
Yeah, because this race on the 22nd of June, was on a horse called Diet, and the report said that you made all and won by 3/4 of a length.
Yeah, that's it. I think he was a bit of an old dog in the yard, and he used to like to think he was running away with you, and quite often that's what he was doing with me, running away with me. And I seemed to get on with him. I won quite a few races on him.
Did you know James Doyle rode his first winner under rules on 1st of June 2005 on the Richard Price trained Farnborough at Wolverhampton?
So after that, you then took an apprentice job at Peter Chappell Hyams. How did that come about? Because a big move to go down to Wiltshire.
I fancied the change, and a couple of friends of mine had moved there a few months beforehand, who'd been working up in Scotland with me, and then they moved down there. And the apprentice at the time was Steve Davis, and he left for one reason or another. And they'd said to Peter, "Look, we know a lad up in Scotland who'd love," and he said, "Send him down." So that was how it started. I went down there, and I loved my years there at Manton. It was probably still is one of the best training establishments in Europe as far as I'm concerned. I mean, we had multiple good horses there in my day. Dr. Davis and Tuttle Island, White Muzzle, I mean, General Monish, Stony, the list goes on and on, you know.
Did you get on any of those at all? Or because Rodrigo de Triano was there as well, I think, wasn't he?
Rodrigo, I never sat on Rodrigo, but the lad who used to ride him the whole time, Paul Francis, is actually a head lad for John Gosden now. He could have left and done the rounds, Ellsworth and Terry Mills, but he's at Gosden's now, so we work closely together still.
These connections that keep going on, I suppose, yeah.
Exactly, and my the assistant trainer at John Gosden's was Barry, who worked at Chapel Hyams with me, and yeah, there's still quite a few old faces around the place.
And then when Peter Chappell Hyam moved to Hong Kong, that began your association with John Gosden.
Yeah. So he moved, and obviously the boss moved in, and I had a meeting with him the first week he got there, and he said there'd be rides for me and hang around, so I did, and I've been there ever since.
Yeah, and then when you made the big move to come to the home of racing down here in Newmarket.
Yeah, so obviously Ryan Meehan was coming into Manton, and the boss had bought Clarehaven, and again we had a chat, and you know, he said he'd like me to come down if I wanted to come down. He didn't put any pressure, and I thought it was time for a new challenge, and it was probably one of the best decisions I ever made in my life.
Yeah, because you've got this amazing stat of having ridden Enable, Cracksman, Stradivarius, Jack Hobbs, all on their racecourse debuts as well.
Yeah. I've sat in a load of horses, multiple Group 1 winners on the debuts.
Yeah.
That's good. It's part of the job. It's a thrill, and it's nice to uncover them when there's not too much expected of them first time, and they surprise everybody. I like that.
Yeah. So moving on, what's your favourite ever day's racing? That could be as a spectator or as a jockey.
Probably, there's been many days that have been fantastic. Been many bad days as well, but there's been many. I mean, probably my first memory of a real good day was when we won in Signorio in the Grosvenor Casinos Cup at Goodwood for Chapel Hyam, and the lads had really fancied it, and I got done to a really lightweight to ride it, and he was never on the bridle the whole race. I had to push him for 1.6 miles, but he got up and won a neck on the line. But I'd say probably I was trying to ride a Royal Ascot winner for years, and I finally done it in the Windsor Castle on Ardad, and it was like just a massive relief really when I went past the post to have got the monkey off my back. So I'd say that's probably my best day's racing.
Yeah, that was a good price as well, 20-1 I looked at.
Yeah. He'd only won 5 days before it at Yarmouth.
Let's find out Rab's favourites.
Yeah, a few other ones more about your favourites. So, and these could be horses that you've ridden or not. But what's your favourite horse
of all time?
Yeah, or one you've ridden, whatever. Just from your point of view, your favourite horse.
My favourite horse was Kingman.
I thought you were going to say that. I read that. So
I used to ride him in the mornings nearly all the time, and I just had a real affection for the horse, and I knew him like the back of my hand, really, and he was a superstar, and he was a superstar at home, and he was a superstar on the track, and probably, it was a shame he got beaten in the Guineas, but he was the best horse in the race, and for no fault of anybody's, he was just his own. I think his own, because he was so good, he used to go and beat horses on the gallops with that, getting out of second gear, and in his previous races he was doing the same. So the first time he really had a race was in the Guineas, and obviously Night of Thunder.
That was the year when they split up into two groups.
Well, he went past everything he had to beat and just thought, okay, I've done it now. But Night of Thunder had sort of drifted across the track, and Kingman obviously never seen him, and he'd down tools by then, but he never got near him again in any other race. So, but I noticed a real change in Kingman after the 2000 Guineas, because he really, it took that race for the penny to drop and for him to wake up. And before his bit of work before he went to Ireland for the 2000 Guineas in Ireland was absolutely one of the best pieces of work I've ever sat on. He was amazing.
There's that Guineas, when you look back, the English 2000 Guineas, Australia was third and fourth was Kingston Hill. What about your favourite jockey?
My favourite jockey? What, of all time?
Well, can be, or yeah.
Well, obviously all the old. I mean, I never really had a favourite jockey, but I used to love. I mean, obviously Frankie's phenomenal, and he's like one of my best mates. I mean, in the morning he's unbelievably knowledgeable at the whole parting programme. He knows it like the back of his hand. He wouldn't know the maidens and stuff like that coming up to Yarmouth on a Wednesday or Thursday, but certainly the parting programme, he's because he's won most of those races. But as a kid, I admired Ray Cochrane. He's always strong as an ox. Walter Swinburne. I loved his, he had lovely hands and could relax one. I used to watch all the top jockeys all the time and never really had a favourite, but I used to watch them all, and I loved watching them and rewinding and watching them again and again, in the big races.
And what about your favourite trainer? Probably an easy one, I think. But
I think that's John Gosden.
I thought you'd say that one. I've written it down.
Yeah.
He's obviously made a lot of difference to you and helped you a lot.
Well, he's put a roof over me, my wife and kids' head for long enough, so I owe him a lot. And he's, himself and Rachel and all the kids, the family, they're such close friends of mine, and I couldn't hear a bad word about any of them.
Good. And your favourite race, or that to actually be part of, or just your favourite race? It doesn't even have to be a flat race. It could be the Grand National. But what's your favourite race?
I always for some reason I was in it, the Lancashire Oaks, and it was my first ever group winner was the Lancashire Oaks. And I've only won it twice, but the lads take the mickey out of me and say, this is your race. But I've only ever won it twice, but I've had plenty of goes in it. But it's always a race I like riding in.
And what about your favourite course that you race on?
That's easy, the July course at Newmarket. Yeah,
and why is that? Why do you like that one the best?
I don't know. I suppose it's handy for my house. I'm there every sort of Friday and Saturday. Seem to pick up good rides there. Frankie's usually elsewhere, and we can nick a few winners there. And it's an easy track to ride, but at the same time you have to know it. There's you don't want to be kicking too soon while you're going up the hill, but you don't want to be waiting too long because you want to get momentum running into the dip. But it's just always been a track that it's always been an easy one to answer that question. It's always been a July course.
And what about your favourite other sport that you play or watch yourself?
Well, I'm a Rangers fan for my sins, Glasgow Rangers, but we keep getting beaten by Celtic, and I'm reminded of it constantly in the yard as there's a few other Scottish lads there.
So, Rab, when you were younger, did you go and watch Rangers?
I didn't go as much as I'd like to go. Obviously, I went, when I could, but, being into the horses, I was always sort of rushing up there after school. And then when I started at John Wilson's, there was no time to be gone. But a lot of my friends used to go quite a lot, and they still go to this day. And I'm pals with Ali McCoist, and he's always saying that we should get a Rangers and Celtic game together, which I'll hold him to one day.
Well, he ought to be an ex-manager there to get your tickets. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have plenty of banter, and obviously sharing the same team. He's become a friend over the years.
And what about your future ambitions before you retire?
Well, I'd like to ride a Group 1 winner. Obviously, I'm trying to do that for a while. And I won the Italian Derby and the Italian Oaks, but obviously they were demoted to Group 2s, which would have been nice if they were still Group 1s. But hopefully we can still tick that off the bucket list. Good.
Hopefully soon. And what about how many more years do you think you might carry on riding?
I'd hopefully ride another 5 years anyway and see what happens after that. I mean, Frankie reckons he's going to go another 5 or 6, so we might be retiring on the same day. You never know. As long as you're popular, as long as you're getting rides and there's a reason to go on, then there's no reason to stop.
And what would you like? Would you like to then be a trainer, or what would you like to do then? Or?
No, I don't think I'd like to be a trainer. I see that I wouldn't. I mean, I like going racing and sort of probably, maybe saddling up for the boss, or it'd be 30 Gosden by then. But and talking to jockeys and talking to owners, I had a little spell doing that a few years ago, and I really enjoyed it. So you're still part of it, and you're still riding work, but at the same time you're still part of the whole afternoon experience as well. So I'd like to do something like that.
So you want to stay in the sport, obviously, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's something I've been doing. Literally, I've been involved in since I was 11 years old, and it's hard to get that sort of stuff out your blood, really.
No, yeah, I can imagine. Well, thanks very much for being on the paddock and the pavilion, Rab, and good luck for the rest of the season. And let's hope you win that Group 1 sometime this season.
Thanks, Stephen. Good to talk to you.
Thank you for listening to the Paddock and the Pavilion. You can download the show on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher and Spotify. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Pad and Pav.
Sports Social Podcast Network.